Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. We're continuing our discussion of Dune by Frank Herbert. Tonight's discussion, the Baron is a demanding bastard. He's not convinced that Paul and Jessica are truly dead. He wants Kynes killed for playing both sides. He sees a potentially valuable prisoner in Thufir Hawat, and he wants Raban to squeeze Arrakis. Meanwhile, Paul and Jessica did escape the sandstorm and are on foot in the open desert, trying to sandworm strikes. We'll talk about all this and more tonight.
Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Brian.
Okay, so you said in your intro that the Baron doesn't believe that Paul and Jessica are dead. However, I think later on in this section, he's like, yeah, they're toast because nothing's going to survive that storm. But he doesn't want to give...
It takes a lot of convincing, though.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No. So I think, is it Nefud as the Baron's man that's kind of bringing him this report? And it takes a bit of convincing, but I know that the Baron does kind of land that Paul and Jessica they couldn't have survived that sandstorm. Nobody could have survived the sandstorm, although we know that they did. Mm-hmm. But the Baron doesn't know that. But the Baron also doesn't think the Fremen are a threat, so...
He's wrong.
Yeah, the Baron thinks he knows a lot of stuff, and, he's very proud of the way that he took down the Atreides and Arrakis, and how he, basically was able to outdo Thufir's defenses, and how they went back to old school weaponry and all these different tactics that they used to basically break in and take down the Arrakeen.
And it's interesting to me how the Baron thinks that he can convert Thufir to be his mentat.
I think he wants to use the fact that Thufir still believes Jessica is the one that betrayed the Atreides. He's convinced that it was Jessica. He doesn't know that it was Yue. So it wasn't that the Baron wanted to use that as a means to kind of turn him, and also administer a poison and an antidote that would kind of keep him alive, and that would be some more convincing, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the entire thing of trying to hire the Master of Assassins for his own team, I thought, I was trying to picture how this would go in my head, like the Baron saying, "I've had a recent departure on my team, and I'm looking to hire. Howat, would you like to be hired?"
Gentlemen, we're back.
We thought you got eaten by a sandworm.
We couldn't afford the CGI for that scene, so unfortunately we had to cut it at the last minute.
Oh, yeah.
So
probably something about rights, too. I don't know.
That could be. Excuse me. But anyway, you were saying you had something very clever, Brian, about the Baron posting for a mentat position. And I was laughing, even though...
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We have looked at your resume, Thufir Hawat, and we have determined that you would be a good match for our organization. Would you like the job of official mentat of the Harkonnen Empire?
Yes, that was it. So...
Is he on Arrakis.indeed.com or?
Yeah. But that was just bizarre to me. I'm like, okay, it kind of makes sense, and how he's rationalizing that. Yeah. He can turn Thufir over to his side if
he doesn't actually engage Thufir here, though. They're just talking about that he's a prisoner of the Sardaukar, but he's like, yeah, I want him. Bring him to me. Yep. We're gonna give him a poison. We're going to administer this poison, then administer an antidote in his food, and we'll turn him.
Yeah.
Along with the job offer. The other one that kind of got me on this is the way he's the food, I think is the guy's name, tells him that Kynes is kind of playing both sides, and the Baron's just like, yep, have him killed. He's like, but sir, he's the Imperial planetologist. Make it look like an accident.
Yeah, that was
Baron
kinda...
seems very confident in kind of seeing his plan through, and I think he's getting a little. Well, he's already big for his britches anyway, but or his dispensers.
Ooh.
But I think he's getting a little overconfident.
So it's very rare that you see. Speaking of that, an artist rendering that I think captures how truly grotesque the Baron is.
Do you have one?
Yeah, it's up, even though you can't currently see it, and it's pretty disgusting.
Oh,
so
would he be on like My 600 Pound Life or whatever that
kind
show
of
is?
Yeah, it's like he's like pouring extra virgin olive oil on his nipple. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's always interesting too that he's always talking about food or consumption, or he's always wanting more. So I think that it's kind of even though he's a physical embodiment of kind of everything that he represents, that he's a glutton for everything, if you will.
So when he brings...
kind of like Gollum was the one that was corrupted so totally by the ring, that he just completely changed. So I think the Baron is kind of in a similar vein to Gollum.
Actually,
go ahead, Brian.
He kind of actually reminds me of the Dr. Seuss character, the Onceler. I don't know if you've ever read the Lorax at all.
Yeah, long time ago.
You kind of have this corporate greedy shill who's in it for nothing but themselves and all the money, and then all of the people who are down on the planet, who are trying to make the world a better place, just keep getting stepped on. And he brings in his axes and cuts down the entire ecosystem just to fit his needs. And he does talk about the necessity of money and income, and just almost greed above all else in all senses of the word.
It's almost prophetic to the president we have right now, too.
Yes.
Was he orange?
Not in that picture, no.
That was the Catholic Bible.
Yeah. Sorry, I got to bring it back to what we're discussing.
Because you mentioned the suspensors, and what I found interesting was when he had Raban brought into him, and like he was just like, some of his internal dialogue, he was saying that, eventually he'll be in the suspensors too, and things like that. And you think to the movie, and Raban is being played by Batista, who is cut. And everybody knows him as Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly an out-of-shape dude.
No, I mean, he's basically got a bodybuilder physique, so...
Yeah.
And he seems like a kind of a cool, subdued guy when you hear him interviewed.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, because you get just a brief glimpse of him in the trailer, and the way they've got him made up with just a real white look. I'm curious to see how he's portrayed once we get to see a little bit more of him. But I thought... when he talks about Raban, he talks about how he's kind of low-built, gross of face and body, with the Harkonnen paternal lines, blah, blah, blah. But he's got some rigidity in his fat, so he's got some muscles there. But, he'd one day come to the portable suspensors for carrying his excess weight. Then the Baron says he's muscle-minded, but a tank brain type, kind of a meathead, if you will.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And it's interesting, this conversation, because he's basically saying, he's like, it's not like last time. The gloves are off. You do what you need to do as long as you can get the income.
Yep.
Don't.
So this is where he tells him that, yep, Arrakis is yours. Piter's dead. So it's coming to you. And I want you to squeeze.
You mean exterminate?
No.
Right. That's too squeezy.
Yeah. I understand perfectly, my lord. You understand nothing perfectly.
Man, they have such a weird dynamic.
Yeah, but this is where we get into where Raban actually shows some insight and says with it, I think that the Fremen estimate might be low. It's difficult to count the population scattered among the sinks and pans the way they are. And the Baron kind of comes back and says, the Fremen aren't worth considering. Forgive me, my lord, but the Sardaukar believe otherwise.
This is where you start to get an idea that the Baron has some flawed. Well, obviously he's got some flawed thinking, but like for somebody who is strategically minded to the level he is, for him to just dismiss the Fremen out of hand as rabble and refuse to accept anything else is weird.
And the fact that they ran Arrakis for how long before the Atreides came in, and the Atreides were there, what, a couple of months, if that?
Mm-hmm.
I that's another one. I don't know what the time frame is for when the Atreides arrived to when the Baron sprung his trap, but it wasn't years. It was pretty quick. Or it feels like it was. But even living on Arrakis that long and being exposed to the Fremen, and I guess we don't know that the Baron actually lived on, I guess we know he lived there, but we don't know how much he paid attention to what was going on. They were there just, like Brian said earlier, just for the greed and the money and the power of running Arrakis. They could, give two craps about anybody else that lived there.
Well, and I think Raban had Arrakis before, because the Baron was like, this isn't like last time where I had you on a leash. The leash is off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I guess I didn't pick up on that, but I think you're on something there.
Yeah. So, but that just strikes me as like this blind spot that he has, and I'm not sure if it's arrogance or if it's something else, but it's interesting. Are we ready to jump back to? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say another line in the book, though, when he's talking about the Fremen, and Raban tells him that a Fremen unit wiped out some Sardaukar, and the Baron's first response is impossible. It must have been Fremen lieutenants or higher up Fremen that did it, but it couldn't have been just General Fremen. But again, kind of reiterating the point that the Baron's kind of got a blind spot to the Fremen and the potential power that's there.
Yeah. So let's
should we see what happened to Paul and Jessica?
We should.
Yeah, let's.
So this is where they write out basically they go as high as they can in the storm and write it out, and eventually they kind of crash land, kind of in somewhere in the deep desert, and they quickly grab the packs and need to move across the desert because they know that the crash will attract a sandworm. So I imagine this will be a cool scene in the movie, but
well, and when it does come, and Paul's like, no, this is a good thing that is coming, because it's going to destroy the evidence that we landed here. But when it goes by, and Paul's observation is it's bigger than a guild spaceship, and both he and Jessica were just like floored at the size of this thing. So
I wonder if that was the one they showed in the trailer.
Could have been.
Well, the one they showed in the trailer is kind of in front of two figures. So
I suppose.
I don't want to give any spoilers, because it could be a different
point.
Scene.
Good point.
But that isn't the only worm that we'll see. That's not really a big spoiler, but we will see more. But I think that's interesting too, because I know that they talked about, or when UA gave Paul the video clip of the worm and said, it's just a small specimen, 120 meters or whatever, and I think they said, there's some recorded as being, like 400 meters or more in the deep desert, and you think 400 meters, that's like half a kilometer, so almost.
And I wanted to say, like, no, I'm thinking the sandstorms can get up to 700 kilometers per
800
hour.
kilometers.
800, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, but it's like
500.
even when you say, that, oh, well, something's this big, it's like you can tell me how big like the mountains are when you go to Colorado, but until you get there, it's like
Right.
you don't have that comprehension. So,
Yeah.
Until they actually witness this thing come up,
Yep.
basically devour the ornithopter, which would have been tiny in its mouth, I would assume, if he's that big.
Yes, I would
That
say
they, just wouldn't really have any sort of comprehension of just how big these things are or how big they can get. And
Right.
this, they're in the deeper desert, but this might not have even been a huge one. It might have been an average one. We don't know.
Yeah, but they pretty quickly remember kind of the survival training. It's like, okay, you rest during the day, you travel at night.
Yep.
You're supposed to drain the catch pouches on your still suit because your body's much better at using the water than it is just sitting there. And I think it doesn't sound pleasant drinking water from a still suit.
Pretty
No, it
brackish.
Yeah.
Nope.
But I suppose it's alternative to not drinking anything and dying
Right.
of dehydration.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't want to get the dehydration.
No, you don't. Just like
Nope.
you don't want to get the COVID.
Nope.
No. So far, so good. But
Fabulous. That's
so
excellent.
they reach that they reach kind of a rocky outcropping, and then they see that to get to the next place that they want to go is about a 4-kilometer walk across the open desert. And so they decide to set up camp, and in the process of doing that, Paul triggers some sort of a sand slide, and I had trouble kind of visualizing it. It sounds like they were kind of on a higher point, and they were it was kind of heading down to a lower point to get closer to sand level, so they're less visible from the sky, but they're still protected from the worms. And in doing so, he somehow triggered this sand slide and buried his mother and lost the pack with their tent and the thumper and all their gear in it. So.
Yeah, and the whole process of before I go to that, Paul manages to dig Jessica out, and he calls it Bindu suspension, what she's done, which is, I'm guessing, she's in control of all of her body functions enough to basically slow everything down.
It's got to be some a deep meditation type thing, I would assume.
But one thing that was kind of interesting to me was in George Lucas's first draft of Star Wars, the Jedi were called the Jedi Bindu, so that word kind of stuck out to me. So, but Star Wars did lift a lot from Dune.
Yeah, it's not the only thing that did.
No,
but
not by a long shot. But
I think that, to me, another interesting thing here is that I'm just going to look up the word Bindu real quick, just out of curiosity.
Sanskrit word meaning point or dot, but I don't think that's the right definition.
But if she's focusing in on something.
That's true.
True.
Yeah, that's from Yogapedia, so it's got to be a yoga thing to focus in on.
Maybe it's like the flame in the void from Wheel of Time.
Yeah, which borrowed heavily from Dune.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the thing that this scene the purpose it serves to me is to kind of show Paul that he still has a lot to learn. So when he frees Jessica from being buried, and he realizes, that he's lost the pack, he kind of starts to freak out a little bit, and kind of gets almost feudalistic to where, what's the point? We're gonna probably die out here now anyway. I lost the pack, and she's kind of like, hey, slow down, breathe. This isn't the way I've taught you. Let's think this through, and we'll figure something out. And he does just that, and he kind of figures out a way to keep the sand from sliding, and they're able to dig out the pack, and and kind of reset there. But I think the next thing she does is basically say, yep, we're going to continue your lessons or your training. Let's start now. So I think it was more to show Paul, or kind of showing Paul in a situation where, even though he's animation, he's still not where he is headed. He's got a long ways to go before he gets to the whole muad'dib and being the prophet the Fremen are expecting.
Well, and he's only 15.
True.
Yeah.
He's accomplished more at 15 than I've accomplished at 40, 41, yeah.
Gosh, you're getting old.
I know. I'm coming.
Catching
I'm
up.
coming for you, Pops.
I know.
Anyway, the pack. Let's go to the pack. Because that to me was like, so yeah, the pack got submerged and they're like, okay, well we can get this out. And it was almost like this MacGyver moment, right? I'm reading this section and I'm like, do 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 ding do ding do 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 ding.
Yeah.
I expected Paul to sprout this yellow mullet and pull out a Swiss Army knife at any moment, but he didn't.
But MacGyver, not MacGruber, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like something with the compass and this.
It was like the acidic something that was in the compass that he could mix with because he went out and got spice too, that mixed with the whatever that was to create some foam that would help keep the rock or the sand from sliding so that he could keep digging for the pack. And what was it? Basically found the strap and then they were able to kind of pull it the rest of the way out without breaking the strap, so they had to be very careful.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool scene because it forced them to rely on other skills that really we haven't seen a lot of. It's like identifying, that, okay, this is acidic, so if we put this with this, we'll get that. I mean, that's science. That's telekinesis, Kyle, only it's not really.
It's levitation, Holmes.
Picking up what I'm throwing down.
I did find here's a little definition on Bindu. So it says that it's basically the focus point between your eyebrows, so kind of where the dot is for the Hindi, but it's also referred to as the transition point into pure consciousness. So that would make sense then, if like a deep meditative state that we've talked about a little bit ago. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
now we know.
We know.
Knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
The real American hero.
Okay, so they're putting up the tent, and they make the observation that people have been here before because there are like anchor holes in the rock and things like that, and they see other evidence of civilization. But this whole section basically ends with Jessica being like, "Okay, it's time to train because you lost your cool back there, and but you have to learn more about your body," which sounds weird, but
I feel like this is the beginning of a montage.
Yeah.
Bendu makes another appearance here because she says to him that today you panicked. You know your mind and your Bindu nervature perhaps better than I do, but you've much yet to learn about your body's prana musculature. I don't know what that means, but some of it sounds made up, but Bindu kind of makes another appearance there, so focusing in on something.
Okay.
And this is where they actually see another sandworm go by in the night.
Yeah.
And this is where actually Paul says he's seen space frigates that were smaller than the sandworm.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well.
And this is where he looks at his hand and he looks at the worm and says, how inadequate it appeared when measured against such a creature.
Small hands. Everyone, thank you.
He's only 15.
I know. The hands can still grow. There's time. I get it.
I know. Yeah. He may have a growth spurt.
Yeah. His hands will grow. Okay, we're
devolving.
Thank you, everyone, for putting up with that. Join us next time as we continue our journey. You can check the description below to see which sections we're covering. We invite you to like and comment on this video if you have insight, questions, or other observations from these sections that you would like to share. We would love to have that conversation. We also invite you to subscribe and also enable notifications so that when we do post new content, whether it's discussing Dune or one of the other book reviews that we're doing, you know about it. And lastly, Have a great day, week, night, whatever, whenever you're watching this, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Allons-y.